welcome to the Ask Arlene show. Hello, we're so excited to be with you today because we are in Sacramento, California, in the mall. And I'm just so excited because I have a special guest. His name is Mr. Walter Aguilar. And today we are talking about energy and how you can use energy to overcome your fears, get unstuck, and live your best life. And so we're going to get right into it. Walter is a IPEX energy coach, and we've had him on the show several times. And one of the things that he helps us to do is to let go of the past and the baggage that we've been carrying in the past that's been weighing us down so that we can begin to move forward and be our very best self. So I'm going to ask the team to play the clip from the last show, and then we're going to get right into the discussion.
How to appropriately grieve those things in our life that we consider as losses. We didn't learn how to effectively forgive ourselves, forgive other people, accept ourselves, situations, or other people. We didn't learn how to let things go. And what happened is all those things we didn't let go got stored in our subconscious. And it gets stored in our subconscious. The language of our subconscious are feelings and emotions. So what you'll actually find is that most people are under the illusion that they're making choices about what's actually happening. But the reality is, by the time we hit 35, the majority of our in-the-moment decisions are made out of our subconscious. Only 90% of our, actually 95% of our
Decisions are made with the subconscious mind.
5% with our conscious mind.
Hey, so hopefully you got that insight from the show. I'm going to invite Walter Aguilar to join me. Hello, Walter.
Hi, Arlene. Welcome. It's great to be here.
Wonderful. Great to have you back for part two of the discussion. And so I want to know, what are your comments on the former discussion that we had? I think it's really important for people to understand, and me to understand, how the weights of the past are weighing us down and causing our energy to be less than exuberant and ebullient as it should be. And so, what are some things that we can do? And I'm going to ask the team to put it down below the question. What are some things that we can do to let go of some of those things, some of those weights, so that we can have greater energy and be able to move forward in a better way?
Yeah. I think the thing that really is the beginning is just to really start to work on being more aware. And awareness is nothing more than noticing your thoughts. I know Eckhart Tolle does an exercise where you're watching the thinker, where you're able to watch your thoughts without labeling or judging. I think awareness is a big part of it. And then the second thing I think is really important is learning how to cultivate more acceptance in our lives. Because the past, as we know, the past is just memories of what's happened. The future are just expectations. And there's actually no power in the past or in the future. The only place that we have any power is in the present moment. So learning how to accept the things that have happened in the past is a big way to start to be more willing to be in the present moment, because a lot of the neuroscientists explain to us that majority of us make 95% of our in the moment decisions based on our subconscious, which is the past.
Okay, we don't want to go too far because we're going to talk specifically about that particular point that you made in the former show. But before you move on, I want to talk about what you said. You said we're watching our thoughts, and if we can watch our thoughts, then we can move forward from our past in a better way. But how do we watch our thoughts?
I think watching your thoughts is as simple as just wherever you may be, just taking a deep breath and breath out, and just be willing to be an observer, right? So in other words, watch the thoughts. And then here's the interesting part. If you notice yourself labeling or judging those thoughts, you're no longer being the observer. It's your ego that's now taken over. And the ego actually requires a past and a future to exist to actually make judgments.
Okay,
So
so you're talking about judging our thoughts. Now, that's really key because it's in the judging of our thoughts that our energy is drained. So, usually people talk about energy and they're like, okay, well, you should get more sleep. You should, take a walk around the block. You should eat right. Usually, these are the basic things. But the things that you're talking about go a little bit deeper and they speak to those 7 energy levels that you so often talk about. Can you tell us which level this would correlate to?
Well, being able to watch your thoughts is would be level 6, is the self
Okay.
transcendent stage, right? And the reason why is that we when you think about the term mindfulness, it's kind of a misnomer because it's actually mindlessness. It's where you actually shut down the mind and just
And
observe
that's
the
when the
world.
athletes are in that flow state where they can just, or like me with the running, when you get into that flow state where you're not even conscious of what you're doing, it just flows. How do we get into that state?
Well, I think that it's actually not that you're not conscious, is you're more conscious because what happens is that when you're in that state, it's called being in the zone, and that's
Yes, in
where
the
you're
zone.
you're you're connected to everything, but you're detached from all outcomes. And the state of mindfulness is the stage, but it's not completely the zone because at level 6 you're having awareness. At level 7 you are awareness. So, in other words, when you start to be able to be more mindful and shut down the mind, you have access to the observer, which is watching you do what you do, and you have the access to the highest level of creativity, intuition. If you're a person of faith, you feel more connected to God. If you're into the quantum physics, you're in that zero field where every possibility exists. In other words, in that moment of being in that flow or zone state, every version of ourselves exists in the moment. And our observer will always take the highest version of ourselves. But when you start to think and label, you're no longer in that flow state anymore. You're now in the past or the future. And that's called the ego. That's why the ego is not only thinking of ourselves better than we ought to, but also less than ourselves than we ought to. So sometimes people think playing small is being humble. It's not. It's just the other side of the ego. And the
Okay, so
ego
this,
can't exist in the present moment. It has to have that past and future thinking.
hmm, you said a lot there. That space, I can recognize it, and we can all recognize it because we've all been there at some point. Like I said, when I've been running, and your mind is no longer involved in the process, you're just free flowing. Or if you are, for example, you're a bowler, because I used to bowl, and you get to that place where everything you throw down the lane is just a spare, and you don't even know exactly what you're doing because you're not thinking about it, it's just happening. Or I heard a basketball player say, Cheryl Swoop say, in that game where she was playing against another national team and she went to the Olympics. She said everything she threw up from everywhere in the court, it just swooshed. And she was in that state where she knew it didn't matter. Everything she threw up was going to go in. So I think we've all been in that space at some time or another. So we understand what you're talking about. But how, is there a way that you know how to get into that state so that we can enjoy it more often? And you said that would be a level 6, or is what level of energy
Yeah,
would that be?
I think that when you get to either level 6 or 7, is where you transcend your sense of who you think you are. Because who we think we are is based on the values, principles we live by, belief statements that we believe to be true, our experiences, and our fears. So when we are looking to transcend ourselves, that's where athletes no longer are just playing the game, they're being the game, right? That's why
Right.
when artists are no longer playing music, they become the music, right? Because in the state of mindfulness, when there is no mind to judge or label, you just become part of the moment, and that's where you're connected to everything, and there's no need for No need for the analytical mind to be there, because whatever your role is in that moment, you will be able to show up as the highest and best version of
So
that.
if you had to give us steps, one of the steps you're saying is that you're not judging yourself. Okay, so you're not worrying about the past, you're not worrying about the future. So you're not worrying about whether you get a spare or not if you're bowling. If you're an entrepreneur, you're not worrying about the six figures or the clients coming to you. You're just in that space. You're in the present moment. That would be one step. Another step to being in that space or getting in that space would be
Um, don't take things personal. In that space, nothing is personal, because
in
there is
that
no
space. Nothing.
because in that space there is no self-perception of ourselves. The reason why we get offended is because we feel like we have to protect or defend the version of who we think we are. When you get into that state of mindfulness where you're connected to everyone and everything, there is nothing to take personal.
There is nothing to take personal. So we're going to go to break in 2 minutes. But before we go to break, I want to get these steps clearly, because, well, actually 1 minute now. When we come back, we're going to talk specifically about secret number 2 from the former show that you discussed with us, about how we get into that true state of consciousness. Or what did you call the state?
Mindfulness.
You called it a state of mindfulness. So everybody's talking about mindfulness these days. It's great to be in that mindfulness state. But the secret is getting into it and staying in it as long as we possibly can, because that's truly where the magic happens. That's truly where I don't want to call it perfection happens without us even trying.
Yeah, because the whole thing is that the moment is all there ever is. There is no past or in the future. Those are actually just thoughts and expectations. When you right now, this moment we're in is as real as our life is ever going to get. Nothing that ever happens in our life happens outside of this moment. So when we start to be able to live in this moment, we start to live our lives fully.
Okay, great. So we're going to be right back, and we're going to talk some more with our energy coach, Mr. Walter Aguilar. Thank you so much. We'll be right back. Bye.
I'm Arlene, host of the television talk show Ask Arlene, which airs on Thursdays at 6:30. And I'm here to tell you 2 reasons why you should join our Speakers Bureau training and how to become a world-class speaker. 1, revenue generation. People who know how to communicate well earn more dollars and cents. And 2, if you have a day job, you're not a speaker, teacher, author, trainer, you're going to gain promotion on your job if you're better able to communicate with confidence in those board meetings. Now, you say, why should I join your group, Arlene? There are so many programs out there. Well, I'm guaranteeing you an interview on television or radio if you complete our 10 sessions of our Speakers Bureau training. So I have a plethora of friends that do the same types of things that I do, and so we're guaranteeing you an interview on either television or radio. And you say, well, why else, Arlene? Why else should I join? Well, if you join our Speakers Bureau, after having taken the 10-session training, I am going to help you, along with our team, to launch that speaking career that you always envisioned, so that you can use your message to change the world. So there's so many programs out there, and they tell you how to be a speaker. But I'm going to actually help you to get booked on paid speaking engagements, on television, and on radio if you complete all 10 sessions and you join our Speakers Bureau. I hope to see you there and see you using your dream, your vision, and your talent to change the world. Bye-bye. See you there.
So once again, we're here with Walter Aguilar, our energy coach, our person who has been married for over 30 plus years, giving us insights and information about how we can win at the game of life, overcome our fears, get unstuck, and live more courageously. We're so excited to be back. We had a few technical difficulties in the beginning, but now we're with you again, Walter. We're going to want to play that second clip that talks about some key points from our former show so that you can truly delve deeper into what we discussed in part one. So I'm going to ask the team to go ahead and play that.
So clarity begins with yourself. Are you clear
Yes.
with who you are?
Not clear necessarily on what you want, but it's about being clear about who you are.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's a key distinction.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people say, in terms of relationships in particular, you should be clear about what you want in the other person. Make a list, write down what you're looking for. But you're saying, no. Focus on who you are.
Correct. And the reason for that is because from an energetic perspective, you
Yes.
don't attract what you want, you attract who you're being.
Hey, welcome back. Okay, comments that you have on that clip, Walter.
I think what's really important is to understand how to get to know yourself. For myself, over 2 years ago, I lost my son. He was only supposed to live till 10. He made it till 21. And one of the things that I did and I have done for the last 2 years plus, I spent a lot of time in meditation because I find that when you can take some time at the start of your day, anywhere from 10 minutes to half an hour, and just be at peace with yourself, it's interesting what comes up because you'll be able to listen to your thoughts. You'll be able to be aware of your feelings, and I think that that's a really important thing. If you can cultivate a meditation sitting practice, or if you could learn to be more mindful. The other thing I think that would be helpful in getting to know yourself is to get a mentor, get people in your life that you feel safe with, who can speak to you about what they see, because quite often we don't see ourselves the way that other people see us. And one of the attributes of a highly aware person and that has higher level of emotional intelligence, not only do they understand how they're feeling, but they also understand how they're showing up is making others feel. And that's a big part because what I found is that at times in the past, I've so focused on wanting to be right and doing the right things. And sometimes I realized that sometimes in life, instead of reacting to a situation, we got to ask ourselves, give ourselves a little bit of time before we go from stimuli to reaction, to give ourselves a little space and ask questions like, do I want to be right or do I want connection?
Okay, I think I hear what you're saying. You're talking again about the ego, wanting to be right, wanting to push the narrative. But the whole idea of the show today is finding out things that we can do to have more energy. Because if we have more energy, then it's so much easier to overcome our fears, get unstuck, and live the best life or live life courageously. So you spoke again about this concept of the ego. But in terms of the second point, which is us taking specific steps to get to know ourselves, I shared with you in the past that when my mom passed away, just to put a narrative on it, a story to it, I was connected to working in politics, doing things to make my mother and my family proud. And so my identity was caught up in my job, in my career, in the stuff that I was doing. But when we truly get to know ourselves, then we realize, because I had that taken away, my mom was no longer there, so there was no reason to to impress her or to make her feel good. Then I began to realize, well, identity now. Where does it come from? How do I find out truly what my ikigai is, or my true calling, or my true goal, or who I am? So speak a little bit about those steps. How do we know if we
want to ensure that we're doing the right thing, or not the right or the wrong, because we already discussed that there really is no right or wrong, but how do we ensure that what we're engaged in now is the best path for us, or at least even a good path for us in terms
Yeah,
of our true identity?
yeah. I think that it's interesting when we talk about identity, because identity is just really being known by others, and sometimes our identity can be really tied up into our jobs. It could be tied up into our relationships we have with people. So I think identity is being known by others, which requires us to be in relationship with others. But I think that um, any kind of personal development work has to work at the inside. It has to work with us first, and really a lot of it really will help is by setting up some rituals and routines, getting enough sleep, eating healthy, getting some exercise, being around people that lift you up, not tear you down. Really having things in your life that help you to enjoy life more, right? Because I think that whenever we get out of congruence with who we are, the end result is we're miserable, we're unhappy, we're just blaming others for our lack of joy. But when you can start to do and create a little self-care, a little self-love for ourselves, then we don't have such a high expectation of other people to be something or act in a certain way for us to be happy, because relationships are not made, they're not in our lives to make us happy or unhappy. They're there to make us conscious of the things that we still need to work through. So yeah, so I think the inner work is really important. Having rituals and routines every day that can help you into that. Two elements that are really helpful is gratitude and curiosity. Um, and any relationship you're with, if you're grateful and you're curious, you're most likely going to be giving words of encouragement. You're most likely going to be listening more than you're talking, and it's going to help the connections. And connections play a big part in our mental health and also in our enjoyment of life.
Okay, beautiful. You said three of the things that we can use in terms of steps to knowing ourselves are: one, meditation; two, getting a mentor; and then three, gratitude and being curious about where we truly want to go, where we truly want to be. So, as I shared with you, my mom was my inspiration. She was my mentor in terms of what I was doing. But there are some people watching who I'm sure don't have a person who is actually motivating them in terms of their self discovery and finding out what their true calling is. But they have people who are with them that are perhaps drawing their energy and sharing with them that they perhaps shouldn't be doing that very thing that is the light and salt that makes them want to get up in the morning, but perhaps they should do something else. How can we work well in that relationship? Because it may be a mom, or it may be a husband or a wife, someone that's truly close to you. And so you don't want to offend them, but at the same time, you want to continue your journey of self discovery in that particular area. So the person gets up tomorrow, like me, and I say, okay, well, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, or I'm just going to go fly planes because that's where I have my joy. And my partner says, well, you don't know how to fly planes. That's not something that I really want to see you do, because you could have this 9 to 5 job making, however much money. What are some things that we could do to help that person?
I think the one thing that is really important is that all of us want to be seen and heard and have a sense of love and belonging. So by accepting people as they are, you give them you give them permission to be able to, number one, choose to stay where they are or choose to change, because acceptance doesn't mean complacency. It doesn't mean that because we accept them, that you're not going to do your part to move the relationship forward. So I think really giving people space to be heard and seen, and then give them a sense of love and belonging, I think is probably the best we can do.
Well, we're about to close out. We've got 2 minutes left. I want to know if there's anything at all that you'd like to share with us before we close out today, Walter.
Yeah, I think that um, I just want people encourage people to have a little more self-compassion with themselves. A lot of our values that were given by our parents all had to do with survival and security. That's why many of us were driven and we focused so much on doing. I just encourage people to just have a little bit more self-compassion with yourself. If you're not where you think you are, or with the partner that's maybe not bringing you the joy and what have you, but understand that none of us are here by accident. We all have gifts and talents. Really just learn to just really accept ourselves as is, because once we learn how to accept ourselves as is, perhaps we can learn to accept others around us as is as well too, and that would make for a much more kind and loving place to live in.
Well, that sounds great. I'm all for a kinder and gentler, more loving. Asked the team to put the last point up that we were going to share in the 3 secrets to gaining more energy in your life and having more fulfillment. And the last one was staying married when partner brings up your baggage. So I think that's kind of in line with what we just discussed. When you have another person that's with you and perhaps you guys are not on the same page, but you still want to have that energy and that excitement about what you're doing, I believe that that's kind of in line with all the things that we were discussing about the meditation and the self-actualization. So I just want to say thank you for spending some time with us today. It seems like whenever we start talking, the time is always far spent. So I'm going to ask you again to still come back again for part 3. Will you come back again, Walter?
I most definitely will. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you, team. Thank you, Katrina and Ian. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Name some things I'll be without you, good. Stop the growth, I bet you think you could. Said you gon' leave me, man, I wish you would. Yeah, I'm different, so I'm misunderstood. So I'ma always be good. Said I'ma always be good.